Welcome to Chai After Dark, everyone. I'm Shabnam, and I'm here as usual with my co-host Homa. And today we are here for a little tea time episode. We are about to have like a major brown girl breakdown on cultural appropriation. Homa, tell us a little bit about the latest controversy from JW PEI.
Okay,
Is it PEI or JW PEI?
So this came to my awareness by Urshia Morjani, who is an entrepreneur and has a very large social media presence, and she pronounces it JW PEI. So we're going to take Urshia's lead and just go with that.
Let's do it.
So we do have a history of this and we will be getting into it, but the most recent controversy was when American fashion label JW PEI, last week I think it was, they on their site started to sell what they call a, and I quote, botanical embellished draped overlay maxi dress. Guys, it was like by no stretch of the imagination could you even say it was Sari inspired. It's a straight up Sari. Like go and
it's
look
a straight
at
up
it.
Sari.
It's a straight up Sari. It's not even Sari inspired. It is a Sari, and they labeled. They were selling it around $229, and as expected, because it should be like this, they got called out. The interesting thing about this particular Sari outfit is that the owners of JW PEI are actually, they're not Caucasian, they're not white, they're East Asian, they're not South Asian. So I think it's just important to note that, because sometimes we think about it as just predominantly one group of people who engages in cultural appropriation. That's not necessarily true, especially when you look at Black culture, which frankly speaking has been appropriated since the beginning of time by lots of cultures. By everyone, frankly speaking. Yeah. So, what's happening in our South Asian community, I think honestly, it's not as intense as what's happened to Black people, and I just want to acknowledge that. So anyway, so Urshia, all credit to her for bringing a lot of attention to this. It became viral, and JW PEI did actually end up responding. They didn't issue a formal apology, but what they did was they renamed it, and in their own kind of semi-pathetic way, tried to give some attribution to the South Asian culture by calling it a Sari-inspired draped gown. That would have been okay, but
if
it's
they'd
not
done it
Sari.
in the first instance?
No.
Oh, but it's not Sari inspired.
It's
You're
not
right.
even Sari inspired. It's a Sari. It's a Sari, right?
Yeah.
And so, they threw, I think, some crumbs at us. What do we do with those crumbs? This, the nuances of cultural appropriation versus appreciation, I think it's a much more deeper topic than what social media could get into.
Yeah, so we definitely wanted to get into this because this is like the billionth time something like this has been in the media, and this just came up again last week, like Homa said. But before we deep dive it, I want to set the stage of like what is appropriation versus appreciation. So appropriation is often intentional failure to recognize the culture and background in which a practice or item of clothing is steeped. Right. So some key aspects of appreciation, on the other hand, is unlike appropriation, which can perpetuate stereotypes or exploit marginalized groups, appreciation empowers them and acknowledges artists and their value and contribution, right? So part of this is supporting communities, like purchasing directly from artisans, accrediting creators, and amplifying voices within the source community. Also, it's respectful engagement and cross-cultural connection, which fosters mutual understanding and empathy by broadening perspectives. I think the problem here with appropriation is it's a taking advantage, right? And if you're, especially if you're coming from colonial cultures or subjugated cultures, it's especially demeaning, because right now in the world politically, people are being marginalized. There's a lot of racism going on, and then at the same time, there's this appropriation of those cultures, and it's especially just, it's like violating, it's insane. It's egregious. It's gross.
Especially I think like just a week ago, or a few days ago, there was a poll that was released that India is looked upon very unfavorably right now by Americans, and South Asian hate it's escalating. So historically there's that history of colonization, and currently we have a lot of racism that's ramping up against these cultures that are then appropriated.
And it's so wild that this is happening at a time when we have more South Asian people in government, key positions?
I personally think that that's, I don't think that the timing is coincidental. I think there is always a backlash when you see a certain group of people, marginalized people, people who have been historically without power, coming into positions of power. People who are the opposite side, or people who are afraid, like that scarcity mindset.
Yeah.
Like, if they come into power, what are they going to do to us? And so I think
Right.
whenever you see progress, there always is a backlash.
Which is also interesting because I feel like that is an insecurity that comes from what, quote unquote, us has done to other people when,
Yes.
quote unquote, we were in power. So
Yeah, exactly. Maybe
yeah.
a little bit of fear, like, are they going to treat us the way we treated them?
Right.
Which that means
But
do a little
go ahead.
self-reflection, right?
Right.
Just for our listeners, in terms of
Yeah.
giving context as to why this matters, we have
Yes,
the
let's
definitions
do
of
it.
appropriation and appreciation. But on my social media, sometimes you'll actually see, desis back home in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, etc., be like, why are South Asian Americans so up in arms about,
Yep.
A non-desi wearing their clothes? And it's not as simple as that, I think. And so I'm going to provide a little bit of context for my own lived-in experience, which I think is shared by multiple South Asians growing up in America. And I'm a little bit older than you too, Shabnam. So, I grew up in America where there was only one other Desi kid, and she was Indian in my class, right? Whereas
I had that thought too, because there is a just all of a sudden that like 5 to 8 year difference between like me and my siblings. The demographics vastly changed, and personally we ended up moving when I was 5 to Fremont, which was very Asian, South Asian, a lot of that, so my experience was very different. So I'm glad you acknowledge that now, because I had those thoughts as I was kind of writing some of my own experiences.
I look at the the people who are maybe 6 to 8 years younger than me, and then Gen Z, and honestly I'm happy that they have the representation. They have honestly empowered, I think, older South Asians to find their voices too. So what I mean by this, guys, is when my parents immigrated from Pakistan to here, they came from an educated background, but they didn't have any guidance here. So, my dad, he worked in the fields. My mom was a factory worker. We were not well off, right? And they came to America because they were sold on the American dream that, it's a better life here. We are a melting pot, etc. When from preschool to 5th grade, I wore Desi clothes every day. I didn't start wearing Western clothes until 6th grade. And it's, if there's people out there, well, your family wasn't trying to assimilate, that's not true. We celebrated Halloween. We celebrated the 4th of July. I participated in the Christmas concert, and to this day, I'm still butthurt that all I got was a chorus roll and not like Mrs. Claus, But my clothes would come from Pakistan. My khalas, my aunts, for the non-Desi listeners, that's your mother's sister. They would send me really beautiful clothes. And so for my parents, this was like one economic burden taken off of their shoulders.
Yeah.
Right. So I wore Desi clothes to school every day, and I remember getting teased about them. I remember asking, back in the day, it was a dress style, a frock. That's what we call it, with pajamas, like a straight pant. Why are you wearing pants with your dress? Right. My grandmother, who never wore, she never wore pants. She would be the one who would walk my brother and I to school, and I remember there being moments of such acute embarrassment at being seen with my grandmother, because this elderly Pakistani lady with the dupatta on her head, not the Scandinavian scarf, guys, it's called a dupatta. And just when I think about that, that's so sad that I had to be that I internalized that. And so when you get a little bit older, and just to tell you a little bit about the, excuse my language, mind fuck that this does with kids, is when I was older and there were non-South Asians who were wearing Pakistani, Indian, South Asian clothes or bindis, I didn't at that point think about it in terms of cultural appropriation, fetishization, or our culture is being used as a prop. I internalized that and thought, well, thank God, if this woman is wearing these clothes, maybe the kids will stop making fun of me. Maybe now my clothes will be considered cool. Now I'm not going to be teased.
Yeah.
And I just want people to think about that. That is so sad that a kid has to wait for someone outside of their culture to make it okay,
validate and legitimize
legitimize, right?
Yes.
But at that time, I remember just thinking, thank God that so and so is wearing a bindi, or so and so is wearing a sari, or so and so is wearing shalwar kameez, right? Or they're talking about oiling their hair, because it was that's
a thing that they see people have done forever. You put coconut oil in your hair and you wash it the next morning, and they say like the greasy stereotype, that's where that comes, but that's what people now are spending like all this money to get hair oil. Guys, you don't have to. You can literally just get coconut oil, and that's what people have been using for centuries, and it works the best.
I mean, I've upgraded to oils,
okay.
So
okay.
So, if coconut oil is your jam, but guys, there are other oils out there too, which again you can also get from your desi shop. You don't need to buy super expensive oils.
Yeah, just like your spices. Get your spices from your desi shop too. You don't have to pay like $3.99 for like 1 tablespoon of sumac at like Safeway. But anyways,
that's just to say. So when we're having this discussion, and you're wondering why is this such a big deal, remember, there are so many kids who went through that. There are so many immigrant mothers and fathers who probably got teased for the way they dressed. And we're just talking about fashion and clothing right now, but there's, cooking and smelling of fried onions, etc. Like, we'd be here for like 3 hours then. But I want
and there comes Anthony Bourdain legitimizing all of those things too, right?
Yeah, and we love Anthony Bourdain.
We love Anthony Bourdain, right?
Because he appreciated.
Yes, he appreciated. Yeah. So one of the things, like when you were talking about the same topic, legitimization, right? I totally agree, because Gwen Stefani was a total moment for me. And I know we talked about this earlier too, but she was huge because her Don't Speak, I think it was, where she had the bindi, right? In Don't Speak.
Yeah.
That was like when I was in junior high. And the fact that she was also dating the Desi drummer, I was like, okay, we're in, like we made it, and cool. Which is also really sad to think, right? Because it took this white woman who, probably thinking about it, she was this really young woman that was just like into this Desi guy, and she was probably just doing what like young girls do sometimes. You're like, oh, like, I'm gonna learn Spanish because I'm dating like this Latino guy, or whatever people do. But it was such a like cultural moment, I think, for every South Asian American at the time.
Yeah, and in hindsight's 2020, could it have been handled better? I mean, I don't know. Like, we weren't having those kind of conversations back in 1997.
Yeah. That's true.
Is this...
And I don't feel like she did it disrespectfully at the time at all.
I don't think her intention was at all, no.
Yeah, I don't think her intention was at all. That's my point. Yeah, like I think there's also like a Hindu-Muslim aspect to this. Like, to Muslim South Asians, which I am and you are, bindi is more like a accessory, right? But I think to Hindu South Asians, there's more meaning and symbolism behind it. So I don't know to what extent it's offensive. I didn't think about it like that, but I could be wrong.
I mean, I didn't think about it like that, and I don't think Gwen Stefani was thinking about it in those terms either. But again, like, hindsight's 2020, we weren't speaking in those terms of cultural appropriation and appreciation. I don't know if Gwen Stefani ever in an interview said, I'm wearing this bindi out of respect for my boyfriend's family. I love this culture, right? Like, giving that acknowledgement from where it's coming from, right? I think
exactly. But also, the whole doing it all across your eyebrows, that was just her accessorizing, right? I don't.
No.
Isn't that is that traditional?
Yeah. That's traditional.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But yes, right. Like, so we're kind of speaking for a culture that's not quite our own. South Asian Muslims, Pakistanis, Bangladeshis, we kind of sit in this weird juxtaposition of being. Yeah. I've said this to Shabnam before, and I did not make this up. This was from a TikTok, but I would say Muslim South Asians, we are what they call both 9/11 brown and 7/11 brown.
Yeah, we get the hate from both sides.
I remember when the first Gulf War started, that I was, like, chronically, I've always been asked growing up, where's your dot? But when the first Gulf War started and Americans were like, oh, there is an Iraq or Iraq.
Yeah.
I would both be told to put my dot back on or asked about it and then told to go back home to Iraq. And obviously as a South Asian Muslim, I'm sitting there like, that doesn't even make sense.
Like,
and
they don't care at all.
Right? They didn't care. Like my little logical brain is like, oh wait, but you're not even insulting me correctly. Like, get your prejudices straight and in order. Like, I wasn't even thinking that. I was just like, well, okay, but I'm not Iraqi, and I don't wear the bindi, but
you're like you're really ignorant, but I still feel the hate. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks a lot. Right. Yeah. And so there is a little bit of a if we can shove it, like maybe pivot just to the historical, like a little bit of a deeper dive, because again, I feel like sometimes when we start talking about cultural appropriation versus appreciation, and there's such a social media uproar, there is a group of people who's like, you guys are making too big of a deal about it, right? Like, we are a multicultural, we're globalization, the world is more interconnected than ever. And that is, like, the world being more connected and cultures borrowing from each other and a fusion. I'm all about that. I think that's actually really beautiful, right? But do it from an educated perspective so that you can do it sensitively
and respectfully. Yes, that's my main thing, is the respect in some of these situations is not there, right? And that's the problem, right? If people were like, oh, like, we love these cultures, we appreciate and think really beautiful things within Black culture or things within Desi culture, and that's why we're doing this, and we do not demean and subjugate you as a society, I'd be like, wow, this is wonderful.
Right, exactly. Exactly. And we do have examples of that throughout history. But the nexus of, like, where this first originated, like, did you ever read novels where the words chintz and calico would come up, Shabnam?
Yes.
Okay. Did you ever think that those terms were derived from the Indian subcontinent?
No.
They are. Like, we started doing some research for this episode, and mind blown, but because basically what happened,
totally.
Right? What happened was, England, all these, colonial countries came into India, and there was a thriving textiles industry in India. And, they fall in love, because why wouldn't they? Because it is, all of this stuff is,
it is blingy AF and very beautiful. And beautiful. Yeah. I mean, that's like one of, honestly, my favorite things about our culture.
Right. Oh, yeah. I love the fact that, like, know what, we don't, I feel like non-Desi cultures, and I think it's changing, but we dress up for the Oscars all the freaking time. Right?
Yeah.
We don't just, whereas, like, non-Desi cultures, you get the prom, you get senior ball, and then if you're a movie star and nominated for an award, you get award season. But beyond that,
especially also because I feel like Western weddings it's classy to be understated, right?
Yes.
Desi weddings are not like that. You glam the F up. Like, it is like, that is your time to shine.
Yes, exactly. And it's fun. It's so much fun.
Yeah, and it's so much fun. Yeah.
Well,
so much fun.
It's fun the first day. After 3 days of partying, you're like, I'm done. But that's a side note.
Yeah, I don't know. I was fine with my 3 days. But, after that, I was like, okay. I think on the third day, I was like, I'm glad this is the last day. But
I was so done with it. The makeup, heavy jewelry. I was like, I need to take a nap. But,
well, I did have the last day I wore a dress. I didn't wear like Desi clothes, so it was a little different. So
see, you got to do the fusion thing. So, right? Like, I was on my third lehenga by that time. But a little bit of history, guys, about this, in terms of like how much erasure has occurred, is when Great Britain invaded India, they literally basically stole the textiles, the ideas, so much so that basically the kind of like the pattern would be, India makes something really beautiful, Europe adopts it, Europe imitates and industrializes it, and then the South Asian country loses its economic power, because what they would do is they would take these items, these textiles, and then they'd try to mass produce it in their countries, and then they would put tariffs on India. And then they would try to westernize it to such a degree that things like calico and chintz became associated with the West. Calcut is a port city in India where calico originates from, right?
That makes
the word,
sense.
Yeah, chintz is from the Hindi word chint, which means spotted or bright. And I remember growing up reading like Mark Twain and Thomas Hardy, and like I always thought calico and chintz were these like old-timey materials, right? And the fact that they have a South Asian origin, and I until this day did not know that until I started doing the deep dive, says something about the intense levels of erasure that have occurred. And I'm wearing a paisley printed shirt right now. Paisley is a Scottish town that basically appropriated and erased the origin of paisley from
the shape.
Kashmir.
Okay.
From Kashmir, which is right. Like when you start doing the deeper
I mean,
dive,
paisley is such a South Asian symbol, a beautiful South Asian symbol on clothing, on artisan works, on carvings, things like that. It's such a quintessential South Asian symbol. The fact that it has this, Western English name is pretty suspicious. And I'm not surprised about the town.
Like a Scottish town, because they started reproducing that motive, and they didn't attribute it to Kashmir or any part of Asia.
Yeah. So, this ties into what I was trying to get into a little earlier about the Scandinavian scarves and the, what did they call it? They said it was very European, right?
Yes.
And so that...
Very European, very classy, and suitable for, and these are direct quotes, guys, a Scandinavian summer wedding.
Yeah. So this is the kind of stuff that I'm just like, no. Because the fact that it is something that looks elegant to white people, the West, right, that is then called very European because in their minds, sophistication and elegance is associated with Europe. When it's like, no. That's just because you associate sophistication and elegance with Europe, and you associate brown people with unsophisticated, like dehumanization, demeaning, belittling. Yeah. This is our elegance. This is our excellence. This is our beauty,
Right.
And that's the crux of what bothers me about all this,
Right. Yeah. We're not classy enough until we are. And then when we are,
like kids at school, because of the reflection of this society, are going to look down on your grandmother, make fun of you for your grandmother bringing you to school. But when they see it on this page like that with this white woman wearing the same thing, then all of a sudden it's very elegant and classy. Like that's fucked up.
No, it totally is. It totally is. And the fact is, and what surprises me is that the Scandinavian scarf controversy, that was spring of 2024. That wasn't 1997.
Yeah.
Right. Like do better. And to be fair, the company that posted that TikTok, they did delete it and they did issue a formal apology for it. Some of these fashion houses have not done that, but they did do that. But it's also kind of like, why did you do it in the first place? 2024, by this time you should know better, I would think, right? And same with like, JW PEI, which that was, what's interesting about JW PEI is that they are not white. The owners are Asian, right? And I think you'll see cultural appropriation from culture to culture, right? And it's almost like the non-white based cultures will also do it. And I wonder if it's because we want to be white adjacent.
Well, I don't know about that, but I think that non-white cultures will do it with each other because they almost don't have that same intention and same restriction. But when you're a non-white brand in a white space, it gives the same feeling. And maybe at first you don't realize that, although when you're a big brand like this, you should. But the other interesting thing about East Asian cultures is they do this all the time. There's a lot of fluidity because there was a lot of going back and forth. I mean, Singaporeans are largely mixed, like Thai, Chinese, South Asian, Indian, Pakistani region, right? There's a lot of this like fluid mixing of cultures there that I don't think anybody there finds offensive because there's also mixing of race there a lot, right? Like I personally know Singaporeans that are like, oh, my grandmother's Indian and then my other grandmother was Chinese and then this is like my culture, right? And I grew up in Singapore, right? That's who they are. So that's an interesting one, the JW PEI one. It'd be interesting to understand like who in the company made those decisions and why, right? But the reality,
they're still calling it Sari inspired. If it really was Sari inspired, I'd be the first one to say it. That's the draping is similar to, it's a Sari. It's a straight up Sari.
Yeah, just say you're selling a Sari.
Right.
And then why are you not saying that? Are you not saying that because you think it'll be less appealing to a white audience that you're trying to sell to? Like that's interesting.
I think it's because if somebody saw the word Sari, they would go and Google Sari, and then they would find all these South Asian designers who are selling much prettier, better quality versions of what they're trying to peddle, and then they would buy directly from them. Right, when you're just saying,
oh, interesting.
So
okay,
I mean, come on, it's like that Sari that they're selling is $229.
That's not $298.
$229. To be fair,
$229. Right, okay.
But I mean, you can find so many, and especially with like today's interconnected world, there's you can order things straight from Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, whatnot. Sri Lanka. You don't need to, right?
Yeah, and you'd probably get a little bit of a price cut, but not that much of a price cut, to be fair. But you'd still get probably like at least 10% off.
But better
and
quality.
You'd be supporting better quality, and you'd be supporting
variety,
the original artists. Yeah,
and you'd be supporting the regional artist, right? So I think there is a little bit of there's a little bit of a business plan behind that. And why they just don't call it a Sari, especially, I mean, because, they don't want people Googling Sari, even though now they probably are.
Yeah, they should be. I mean, always try to look for getting things cheaper, guys. It's a rough economy out there.
So, Shabnam, what do you think is like what about appreciation? I think we do have some examples of people,
So, can we talk about, before we go full appreciation, can we talk about the Ambani wedding?
Oh,
yeah. So I don't think the Ambani wedding is appropriation, obviously. Ambanis are Indians, right? And when I'm talking about the guests, right, I don't think that's necessarily appreciation. I think it's mostly ass kissing because they went for these very high-end designers in India to basically, they were appreciating the culture of the Ambanis, I would say, but this is very much a class thing. Like they were just really trying to participate in this grand event of the Ambani's wedding. So I don't know. I don't feel great about that, but it's not their fault. That's more a class issue than a cultural issue.
I would agree. After you obtain a certain level of wealth, are you any race, gender at some point? Like, do the rules apply to you anymore? I don't know.
Yeah.
That's another podcast, I think. But definitely rules probably won't apply to you. For sure.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why maybe we didn't have that because I don't remember people.
No, I don't think there was that discussion. And I mean, it's because the Ambanis are Indian. They're inviting these guests. The guests are very wealthy, very famous, and they're coming. And I think these designers did work with them to allow them to wear like traditional clothing, but that still was familiar to them and made them feel like comfortable or like familiar. Like I'm thinking about the Kardashians.
Right. Do you have a problem with that, though? Like, I don't know if I have a problem with that necessarily.
No. I mean, I did that somewhat at my wedding. I did some fusion-y things, right?
But that's the thing. So, it's a fusion-y thing. And I to their, like, whatever the Ambani wedding, in terms of the image it projected, right? Again, that's another podcast, right? To their credit, most of the stars, it did seem to me, respectfully wearing the clothes. I think then what they chose is a personal preference.
Yeah, right.
Right. And I will give them credit for that it did bring a lot of attention to Pakistani and Indian fashion designers, which that's a good thing.
Yeah, that is, yeah. And it's interesting because actually, tell me if my timing is off or not, but it coincided with this boom in appreciation for Desi culture, like in the music setting, in Coachella. It could have been, because I think it was 2022 or 2023 Coachella. It might have been 2023 Coachella where
Coachella's been
was
going
there.
On. Oh,
no,
yeah.
but I mean, Diljit Coachella.
Yeah. I don't know when was the Ambani wedding before or after Diljit?
Yeah, I'm trying to check right now.
And then Diljit went to
2023. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, the Ambani wedding was right after that. So it was before. So this was all kind of coalescing at the same time. And then we saw the Met Gala 2025, where people had a lot of Desi inspired outfits.
Yeah, I think some did. Desis have definitely upped their presence at the Met Gala.
Yeah.
And I know like Diljit wore his traditional outfit.
Right.
But this did happen.
Like Shah Rukh Khan was there, right?
Yeah, with the guy who designed his outfit, right? And so it did come at a time where I would say even right now, wearing South Asian inspired accessories, clothing is very fashionable, very trendy right now. It's just about, do you give credit where credit is due? And so in my head that come up like appreciation and not appropriation is when, and this is way before your time, but when Princess Diana visited Pakistan and India and she wore shalwar kameez, right? Like that seemed very respectful. And whatever, my thoughts are on the royals, like, Kate Middleton, when she went to Pakistan and she wore Maheen Khan, or Zendaya wearing Rahul Mishra when she visited India for that. I think that was also an Ambani event that she went to. Or like our friends wearing Desi clothes to our weddings or to our parties. I personally think that's okay.
I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. Where it gets really gross though is when you have people trying to make gross amounts of money off of South Asian inspired or directly stolen South Asian cultural items without any attribution or acknowledgement. And Prada was a classic example of this with the Kolhapuri chappal, like in
I remember I saw that.
The spring summer 2026 menswear show. Like they were wearing Kolhapuris, and it's Prada, so I don't know how expensive they were.
Oh God, it was probably ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, I'm forgetting. And again, some things are inspired, and some things are what we call copy paste.
$995 for something you could get in India for probably 10.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Yeah,
maybe a little bit more inflation.
Maybe a little bit more. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But Prada did acknowledge that they were inspired by Indian footwear, and this is where some good came out of it, right? That they actually announced a partnership involving Kolhapuri footwear with Indian craftspeople, but it's like if the call out had not happened, they were going to charge how much was it again?
$995 plus tax.
Basically $1,000 for a chappal.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's I mean, I'm glad that they at least listened. But it's kind of gross that it happened in the first place.
Yeah. Definitely.
Because now you're trying to, especially think about like the workers who are actually making these items, how much they're paid.
Oh, I know. Yeah. It's so sad. I mean, and this is when we talk about why it's so much cheaper there. I have mixed feelings about that too, because those artisans are not paid. Well, they're not paid as well as they should be, even just accounting for all other things being equal, but also they're not paid as much as they should. Period. Their art wouldn't be as valuable there as it is here because there's more artisans that make that there, right?
Right.
So that is also one factor. And then a lot of these countries are like more economically depressed than the US, at least for now. Who knows? In 20, 30 years, but yeah.
Yeah, well, and I think then that we're kind of moving away from the appropriation conversation, but you've got a lot of class systems going on back there, right? The artisan who's actually handcrafting or sewing the sandal together is not going to get paid as much as the designer who is going to sell it under their name, right? And maybe not so much with the chappals, but definitely and I speak for Pakistani designers, not Indian, because that's what I'm more familiar with. I highly doubt that the fashion houses of Pakistan are paying their workers, the ones who are actually, bent over. I don't know if you've ever seen that, Shabna, but I went.
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and they are hand sewing sequins,
the embroidery and the mirrors, and all the little things.
I feel like they're not being paid correctly because of just the working conditions that I witnessed.
Yeah.
But I will say this was about 20 years ago. Maybe stuff has changed. I have a feeling it's not. But, if we have, correct us. Would love the feedback. But, this goes now into, I think, a class socioeconomic distinction.
Yeah, I mean, and then political, right? So like all these things end up political. We sort of started with like a political racism undertone. And just to kind of like full circle bring it back to this, we have these things in this country too, which is like we should buy American made. We should manufacture here, right? There's certain economic things that we're so far removed from that the whole society would have to shift to have us do that. So like I always remember Dave Chappelle's like comedic line where he always says like, you want to make an iPhone in this country, like I don't want to pay like $9,000 for an iPhone,
Well, we are all complicit.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
we're all complicit. Like and something happens when you go back there, man. Like I remember when I lived in Pakistan, I would haggle with the store owners, and it was like that 5 rupees meant so much to me. I mean, I was a college student, so like a med student, so yeah, of course they meant a lot to me. But I think back now, and I'm like, well, why did I haggle so much? I mean, that's probably a psychological thing that you're like, I don't want to be taken advantage of, right?
But also it's habitual. Like I feel like why do I do it? Because I saw my dad do it, and I know how you do it, and I know that you should do it because I know they're not starting with the actual price. They're starting high because they know you're going to do that. So it's kind of a dance too in some ways.
It's kind of a dance. Yeah. It's 100%. So
yeah, because when we were traveling for our honeymoon, Brian asked me that like after a while. He's like, why'd you try to get that so much cheaper? Like it's not that big of a deal. And I was like, no, but that's the real price. Like he started out too high because he knows we're going to do this. Right? I was like,
no, and when they see the foreigners, I remember, like they're gonna try. And I hate say taking advantage of, because you're like, that's probably a fairer price based on American Western standards for what we can afford. But when you're there,
that's why I was like telling Brian, I was like, go away, don't be with me right now. I need to like be with my people and get a right price. I'm just kidding.
Right. But it's also like, but this is very complicated and thorny. But what do you think is the most egregious example of cultural appropriation? And then, to end it on a nice note, like, and cultural appreciation.
So I would say appropriation. I find the Prada thing the most egregious and disgusting, because it is literally the exact same thing, and they're literally trying to make like a 9,000% profit on a chappal. Yeah. And so that really bothers me, because you can see that it's a designer that doesn't need to do that. You're already a luxury brand. You already have a lot of designers. You already have a lot of ideas. You already have a lot of wealth. And you're stealing an idea and ripping them off entirely. So that is very egregious to me. And that's the kind of stuff that bothers me as well. Like the gall to like put that on a runway and expect no one to say anything. It's wild.
Especially in today's day and age. You think you're not going to get called out?
Yeah, I know.
Right? I mean, and then appreciation.
I'm going to say that I have a lot of class-related issues with the Ambani wedding, but I think the appreciation piece, I think that did a lot for the culture, just bringing the culture into the zeitgeist of the world. And we did have that momentum from Coachella and then going into the Met Gala and all these things. And I think that's why partially we're getting some backlash now. Because whenever you have like a little more of something, certain parts of the population get scared, like we talked about in the beginning. But I think for the appreciation,
But do you know what you're saying is, it kind of goes back to that original thing of like, we needed a non-South Asian, a celebrity or somebody, to make it right, like.
Yeah, but which they were, right? Like the Kardashians, Nick Jonas, like there's a million examples, right? But there was all these Western people that like, I mean, if even on the Kardashians show, which I don't watch anymore and I don't like, but I specifically watched this episode, and my mom watched it because it was so interesting about when they went to the Ambani wedding and their clothes getting fitted, and that they went out in India and they went to like these beautiful places and bought these really cheap, really beautiful things like bracelets and things like that. And so you did see this appreciation from these very wealthy very famous people, and it almost like you had to have an Ambani that was like a, you know, hundreds of billionaire to get all these people to come and have this level of appreciation, but they did do it.
Yeah, they did do it. I agree.
So
I agree. I would say for myself, egregious cultural appropriation. So I would say Prada, but Prada did back down an issue. Like they tried. Ralph Lauren, in their fall 2026 Paris Fashion Week show, they had women, and it was a lot of their women of color models who were wearing jhumkas, which are for for our non-South Asians. The jhumkas are earrings. They're a particular style of earrings. They're beautiful, but the way Ralph Lauren sold this was, quote, authentic. They used the word authentic vintage accessories. And they have been called out on it, and they have not issued any public acknowledgement or apology crediting that the origin of jhumkas are in South Asia. And I don't know how expensive the jhumkas are, but again, I'm pretty sure it's a similar Prada markup. Right. But they haven't even tried to repair. And again, maybe the calling them out wasn't as intense as Prada's, because Prada's was really bad. But I don't like the fact that they haven't even addressed it. So that would probably be, in modern times, the most egregious example. In terms of cultural appreciation, because I am an old, I will say I think the way Princess Diana went about doing it was really respectful. It wasn't, you know, her intentions were good. It was done with a lot of sensitivity. And to all of my friends, and to your friends, and, you know, our acquaintances who have expressed admiration, who have, you know, at our weddings or our parties been like, you know, can we wear these clothes, who are, anybody who's willing to have the conversation, I think that is appreciation, and that is something that we should acknowledge also.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And on that note, we want to say, please listen in this Thursday for a very special episode with Imran J. Khan on his movie Mustache, which is a coming-of-age story about a Pakistani-American boy named Ilyas growing up in Silicon Valley. And you can find us on all podcast platforms at Chai After Dark. Give us a review on Apple. We would love to hear it. You can also follow us on Instagram and Threads at Chai After Dark, and email us at chaiafterdark@chaiafterdark.com. Bye, everyone.
Bye.